Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to tell you guys about PicDrop. PicDrop is an image transfer tool I've been using personally for over 5 years. It's where I store all my photos online, how I deliver my photos to my clients. Just a really amazing platform that was actually designed by photographers with photographers in mind. So they really understand what photographers need when they're trying to deliver their photos to clients. The best thing I really enjoy about it is have all my photos organized in one spot. I can easily access them on my laptop or on my mobile phone if I'm trying to download photos on the go. And it just kind of streamlines my workflow. My clients can actually leave notes on the photos. They have a cool new scribble feature where if you're working with a retoucher, they can leave notes on the photos and just kind of like speeds everything up and easy way to communicate with clients and just organize all my work in one place. Like I said, I've been using it personally every day for almost 5 years, so definitely can vouch for it. And with today's episode, all you got to do is enter the promo code BANTER, and you'll get 2 months free of the PicDrop image transfer tool. So go over to PicDrop, enter the promo code BANTER, and you'll get 2 months free. Without further ado, we'll get into today's episode. Welcome to the Photo Banter podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gagne, and on today's podcast, I speak with Allison Retina Stewart, who is a photographer, photo editor, and the founder of Free Juice, a nonprofit organization that is committed to mentoring emerging BIPOC photographers, empowering them to reshape the media landscape with authentic representation. Allison brings a wealth of knowledge, having worked as a photographer, photo editor, and art director at brands such as the NBA, Facebook, Source Magazine, and Godfrey Dedic Partners. In this interview, I speak to Allison about her journey through photography, and also what she hopes to accomplish with their nonprofit organization, Free Juice. Hope you guys enjoy listening, and thanks so much. All right, I now welcome on Allison Retina Stewart. Excited to have you. I guess to start off, excited to talk to you about your organization, Free Juice. When did you start Free Juice, and what was kind of your goal with starting your nonprofit?
Yeah, I started Free Juice. I'm happy to be on the platform, first of all, and thank you, Alex, for meeting with me and allowing me this platform to share so much about Free Juice. I'm excited to be on the photo banner today, and especially on a Sunday, my favorite day of the week. But Free Juice started in 2021. We were incorporated December 2021, and we just wrapped up our second year of programming, which I'm so excited about. Um, and what got me to want to do it was it started off as a collective when I was living in New York. I lived in New York for 8 years. And I started Free Juice in 2017, which originally started as a meetup group that I had on meetup.com start called Brunch and Build. And so Brunch and Build kind of took off while I was living in Harlem and became like a regular thing. And I wanted to take it off from the entity of meetup.com. And then Free Juice kind of emerged with this premise while I was a photo editor working at an agency. And yeah, we've just been rocking and rolling ever since with the niche being just specifically photography and helping emerging photographers could get resources, be connected to people in the industry, and just shine their light. BIPOC emerging photographers is what we focus on.
So the original, when you were in New York, Brunch and Build, what kind of stuff were you guys talking about, and like who was showing up to these meetings, and like how did that kind of help you with what you're doing now, I guess?
Yeah, so Brunch and Build was it started off as so I'm a transplant. I was a transplant from Houston, and this was probably like my fourth or fifth year living in New York. And at the time, I started living Lower East Side on campus. I went to New York to go to school at Parsons, and then moved to the Upper West Side. And then at this point, I was living. Yeah, I lived in Harlem, then moved to the Upper West Side. So at this point, I was living in Upper West Side, and I really was missing Harlem. So I created this meetup group to have brunches in different spots. So we would go to different spots around Harlem. It was at the time it was called Brunch and Build for Young Entrepreneurs of Color. So all different types of entrepreneurs would come to these brunches, and the premise was that everyone would show up with a need of some sort, and we would go around the table, have conversation, but we would ultimately want to provide a resource to each other, barter different services, and just be a light because in New York, I know you live in New York, and it's hard, especially given
I live in Boston.
you live in Boston.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know where I got New
New
York
York's too
from.
wild. New York, I like New York. It's too wild for me.
Yeah, it's a lot. So it was just a way of just like connecting through food. I'm a foodie, and just providing resources for each other.
That's amazing. It's everything you've done with free juice and with that, like having a community, is that something that's always been kind of important to you, like starting out in your career and kind of you actually taking the initiative to build community and help others? Like how important is community into like I guess your career and everything you've done, I guess.
It's super important, Alex. And even before Brunch and Build, like I excuse me, before I even moved to New York, I had a held space called Meeting of the Minds. And it was like my high school friends. I've always like wanted to like build together with people. I've always been the person that people would go to and like, well, Allison, do you know somebody who does X, Y, and Z? And I'm like the friendly, like extroverted introvert type of personality where I'm like, yeah, of course I know this. And I've always been like the connector of so many different types of people. So yeah, Meeting of the Minds was like the same premise. It's always been about bringing people together, shining light on what people have to bring to the table, and also just like being that like glue for all these different people from different backgrounds. I've always been someone who had friends of different cultures, just always been just the nucleus in so many different situations. So
That
yeah, I've always been about community.
that's good. And
Mm-hmm.
with free juice for people listening, like what are kind of some of the things you do? What's the kind of goal of free juice and what are some of the programs that you guys kind of are working on?
So Free Juice, we are a 100% volunteer ran organization, nonprofit. We meet in the background to give you like the background infrastructure side of things. We meet for regular board meetings to really cultivate this programming, and what the programming and the main bulk of it is mentorship. We provide resources, we provide relationships, we provide a structured mentorship program, which kind of spills off into all of our other programming. Our signature mentorship program is an 8-week mentorship program that highlights everything from emerging trends to confidence building to building your pathway as a photographer to how to create an exhibition to how to curate your work. All the things that emerging photographer and even a photographer 10 years in the industry can really utilize. So we have those group settings where our mentees and our cohort can learn in like a peer-to-peer setting, and then they also have a one-on-one mentor. So they're partnered with someone who's in the industry who can provide that in real life perspective as they're learning all of these techniques and skills with their group, with their peers, and then also yeah, we did. So like our other programming is like a miniature of that. So we have like speed mentorship, we have different workshops, but it's really just a premise of sharing and just really just being there to learn. Because I wish I would have had a program like Free Juice when I was in college, when I was a transplant, when I was looking for these communities and these spaces to navigate the unknown, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk to you about your career because the thing you've done a lot of different things, and I think for a lot of people they don't even know what there's all different types of jobs within the photo industry.
Mhm.
So with Free Juice, are you guys educating people not just on people that want to be photographers, but maybe kind of teaching them that like because you worked as a photo editor, like a photo art director, and all these different roles. Do you guys cover this kind of other things besides just photography and this kind of the career paths that are available for people?
We do, and what that kind of came from is I took a my background is like you said, it's all over the place, and I'm so grateful for that because now like I say on the other side I'm just in my 30s, but I see how all those things kind of weave together. But yeah, my background is from photo editing, photo art direction, And I took a course, a couple courses while I was at Parsons that really structured and really gave me like the insights into all these different roles. It was called Professional Practices. And I also took a lot of branding classes. And so that's like a skill set in itself that kind of that came at a perfect time because I was right about to graduate. I thought I was about to be a photographer. Then I was like, wait a minute. I can be like something, I can be so many different things. And so Free Juice, we kind of like we know that so many of the photographers that come in our program and that are attracted to our program want to be photographers. But I think that by having so many different people, whether in workshops or even our board members, we have our board members that are like me, have that varied background. And then we have a pro gear board member who has a wealth of knowledge about just professional gear and stuff like that. So yeah, our curriculum is so widespread because we would like to partner with different people from different backgrounds because once you I think once you really know as a photographer that you don't have to have a camera in your hand, it just gives you the flexibility from a business perspective to navigate in a different way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like starting out, like unless you have know people or like have access to getting in these worlds, it's hard to know like what paths are available, especially
Mhm.
but as you know, like in the commercial space, because you worked at like brands like the NBA and Meta, there's so many people involved in like campaign work and photo shoots. It's not just a photographer, it's like a lot of times dozens of people involved to do these things, and you can
Mhm.
actually make a career out of it. So that's great. And for people listening, if what's the process if you want to join the, I know you guys do the 8 week mentorship program. Like, how does one apply to that, and like, what does that entail, I guess?
So we open the applications once a year, and they stay open for a couple of months, depending on just the anticipation and just like who the applicant. So we usually start like springtime. So May of next year, we'll call for our next cohort. The applications stay open for about 2 to 3 months, and we narrow it down. We had almost I don't even know how many applicants we had this year. We had almost 100 applicants, but our programming is really about how many. The wealth of our program is about how many mentors we can have. So we're always looking for mentors year round, so that we can when it's time for those applications to be open for our mentees, we can have a bigger program because we've the last two cohorts have been 6 mentees, but we've had over 80 applicants each time. So hopefully, as we grow and continue to expand as an organization, we'll have more mentors and be able to have a bigger cohort, like 100. So
And when
that's
people
cool.
and when people apply, are they just like sending in samples of their work? Do they have to like write like a letter, or like how does that process look like when
Mm-hmm.
they're applying?
Yeah, so we have like we have questions about their background. We have questions about their demographic, their how many years have they been in the in photography, about their interests, and just what kind of resources do they have access to now, and kind of where we can fill the gap. Because what we don't want to do is be have redundant programming and have photographers that are advanced and can't really get the bulk of the program. So our application is structured to where they have like a lot of fill in the blanks to really get a grasp of what they need. And then we have like we have an advisory board. We meet as a board to kind of reduce the number of applicants and really focus on emerging photographers that have an interest in other things outside of photography, but just may not know how to navigate that space. Yeah.
That's great. And can anybody apply? Like it's because you guys you're based in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like is it like remote, or like is the 8 week thing, do you need to be located in Texas, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so our program is 100% virtual.
Okay.
We are headquartered in Houston, and just because my background is my secondary hub is in New York. That's our secondary market. And also we're hoping to in 2025 spread into LA and Atlanta and be more visible there. But yeah, our programming is 100% virtual. This year we had mentees from LA, mentors from Atlanta. We had a mentee in India. And I think the reason why we created it to be virtual is because I know for myself, I felt like when I was getting started in the industry, I had to literally physically moved to New York. I felt that way to get access to all of this information, and I don't want anyone to ever feel like they have to do that again. You know, because some people don't have those means. So yeah, our programming is 100% virtual.
That's great. And
Mm-hmm.
for people listening, is there anything they can do to help support the organization, or if they want to get involved, what are some things people can do to support Free Juice?
Yeah, definitely just reach out. I respond to team at freejuice.info. My personal email is Allison at freejuice.info, and we're across all social media platforms at Free Juice Inc. And yeah, just reach out. Like I said, we're 100% volunteer ran organization. So as you can imagine, we rely heavily on donations. We're always fundraising and looking for volunteers. So yeah, it's a labor of love. But we, as these 2 years have gone by, we've seen just how many people need free juice, how many people relate to free juice, and how many people just really want to just lean help. And so yeah, we're just reach out. We'll
That's
find.
great. And in the last 2 years of doing this, like, what have you learned in the process of kind of building this organization? Is there anything you've learned just from all the people that have become mentees, and what are kind of some of the things people are searching for, I guess?
Yeah, I think really what people are searching for is the confidence that it's going to be okay and that someone has done it before. I think just confidence overall. You know, representation is so important in this industry and across all industries. Just to see someone that has done it before. So I think people are coming to the program both from the mentee and the mentor aspect. From the mentor aspect of just like, oh, I have this wealth of knowledge. I've been in this industry for 10 plus years, 20, whatever the case may be. And I'm looking for space to give it all this knowledge back. From the mentee perspective, they're looking for representation. As we both are emerging photographers, you know how anxiety ridden it is to want to do something but not feel like you have the right camera, or don't know how to approach a client, or just don't know where to start in general. So I think it's more so that they're looking for the confidence and the support and the support.
What do you think? Like, because, like I said, you've done a lot of interesting stuff over the course of your career. What do you think you kind of learned that kept you on the track? Because it is a very, it's a hard business to get into, and it doesn't happen overnight. But over the course of your career, what do you think kind of kept you going in the photo industry?
I think I'm a persistent person. I'm a very persistent person, Alex. And once I like, I I don't know. I say all the time, I joke all the time. If I would have known like how much work creating a nonprofit would have taken, I probably wouldn't have done it knowing, back then. But I'm so glad that I was naive. But I think to answer your question, I think it's just well, you just need that you just need that, and I think that what keeps me going is just wanting to have these spaces, just like I remember when I was in college and I'm fresh in New York. I moved to New York with like $1,200. I thought that was a lot coming from Houston, and and it was not. And so I've had those down moments. I've failed so many times, but like I said, I'm so persistent, and I just know that how important this space is and how we need this spaces. We need these spaces to talk to each other. So yeah, when I'm connected to a purpose, I just really like to see it through.
Yeah, and it's amazing what you're doing with the community stuff because, as you know, this business is all based on like network and people. It's like how, at least in my experience, it's like how you might get referred for a job, or if you're a photo editor looking for a new job, you might, I would imagine you probably you build that network of people, and like with your organization, now these people are gonna grow together, and hopefully
Mhm.
they can refer each other, or help each other down their career, which is like that's the hardest part, and it doesn't happen overnight. And building
Mhm.
community is like you have to be active about it, in my opinion. So it's
You
really great,
have
like what
to.
you're building. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be proactive too. I think that's a missing step too. I think a lot of times we think that overnight, especially like with social media, that those pressures and those like expectations that are some most of the time unrealistic. We think that things are supposed to happen overnight, but yeah, like you said, it's a process. But we kind of want to just with our efforts, we want to eliminate a couple of the steps and just say like, hey, this is the way we did it. If you weren't thinking of it,
Hmm.
maybe it creates like a pivot or just like a moment of reflection that can help someone get to the step a little bit quicker.
Yeah, and have people
Mhm.
to talk to, bounce ideas off, I would imagine, and just kind of deal with the ups and downs of this business. So that's
Mhm.
it's important for you because you're actually a photographer yourself. I was looking at some of your work on your website. I see you got the Hasselblad out there shooting the film and everything.
Yeah.
When did you first kind of discover photography and find an interest in photography?
Yeah, well, my dad was a photographer. He's from a small town in the crosshairs of Arkansas and Texas, and he was one of the only photographers of color from his small town, and he had a mentor that was the only photographer of color in that town, and that camera that you're actually talking about was a Yashica. That was
Okay,
his mentors that was passed on to him. That is now like my camera of choice.
nice.
So yeah, I've always like I remember like in my childhood, my dad had his big video camera, and we always like captured the moment. I'm so grateful to my parents for that, to be able to have like out physical albums to look through, now because so many people aren't gonna. You think about this generation, so many people aren't gonna have that, and I think just like having those albums and seeing that consistency from his perspective, and also just I think my first like really just like pathway into photography was in high school. I used to always have a camera. And I used to always like interview my friends like on Friday night, like after the movies. I would be like, okay, well, what did you think? Like
Oh, like
I was
like a
always
video camera?
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. Like I was like the behind the scenes type of person. I always had questions, and
Nice.
so like a camera was always a tool that allowed me to ask questions.
What kind of stuff did your dad like to photograph?
He shot a lot of weddings. He shot a lot of, so like being the only photographer of color in the city, you have to shoot like the things that are happening, the current events, the birthday parties, the weddings, he would go down he went to Prairie View A&M University, which is a HBCU here in Texas, and he would go on the weekends. He'd go back to his hometown, which was like 5 hours away, to shoot, then come back for Monday classes. So yeah, he would shoot everything, but he really found a niche in wedding photography, which I can't do. I tried a couple times, but that's not for me. But yeah, my niche is really documentary and just anything that comes out of a conversation.
Mm.
That's my
That's
flow.
cool. So he was always
Mhm.
supportive of you kind of pursuing a career in the photography and the arts?
Not quite,
That's
but
interesting. You think he would be because
yeah, you would think he would be, but I think he definitely had hesitation. He
uh,
definitely had hesitation.
hey, well, that's where your
Uh,
persistence came in. Now you're successful at doing your
mm-hmm.
thing.
Yep, exactly. I was like, well, I'm going. I
Yeah.
remember when I when I told them I wanted to move to New York, it was like, no, you're not going. And then I was like, okay, okay. Well, it does sound a little crazy now. I did just throw it out at dinner. Let me come up with a plan. So I had to be in college. I enrolled. I got denied a couple times. So what really allowed me to go to New York was I had to be in college. So I was accepted into Parsons. I had to be focused, and once he saw that I was there, and I really was not gonna disconnect from that idea, then he became supportive.
What was it about moving to New York that made you want to make the move out there? What kind of excited you about making that trek?
I think it was, I went to New York one time when I was like 11 to 13, somewhere in there. And I remember, I can tell you vividly what I had on, where I was, like, and I was just like, it hit me, you know? I was like, this is it. And growing up, like hip hop has always been like the foundation of my being. So growing up, I would see 50 Cent and Angie Martinez and everything that was every lights, camera, action happening in New York. And I really wanted to be just involved in that. So I knew early on that I was going to have to make that somehow I was going to end up in New York because that was just the mecca for me, like the Rucker, like everything. It
And
was
what about how was your experience at Parsons? Like, what kind of work were you making, and like, how was your overall experience going to that school?
I loved it. I loved it so much. It was a culture shock for me in the best ways. I moved there when I was 19, and I remember I came for the second semester. So it was like spring semester. It was the middle of a snowstorm. My mom flew up to New York with me to drop me off. And I remember I had never seen Parsons or anything. I was just like, I'm in New York and I'm gonna start school. Um, and it was in the middle of a snowstorm and my mom drove away. And I remember we had school the next day, and I was like, "Oh, school's gonna be canceled. It's snowing. Like, I'm not even getting up. I'm not entertaining this." And my roommate was like, "Are you coming to class?" And I'm like, "Are you?" So, but yeah, it was a big culture shock. But I love Parsons. They taught me. I learned about the importance of network. Just seeing how people connected, how people talked about things. Um, Houston wasn't. didn't have access to how the infrastructure of like a business conversation worked, I guess. And going to Parsons, seeing people like creatives work together was pivotal for me. And I still to this day I'm like the alumni that just won't go away. I'm
Yeah.
just always involved. I love Parsons. Love
Yeah, I feel
Parsons.
the same way about my school. I'm grateful I went to college and I still like because yeah, I think you're similar to me. This community, I love talking about photography and like
Yeah.
figuring out how people do it. So it's like, yeah, that's great. You had a great experience there. And I saw you interned at the Source magazine. Was that while you were
Mm-hmm.
going to school there?
Yep, it was. So the type of work that I made while I was at school, I shot a lot of concerts. I shot a lot of like underground rappers. My thesis project was called the Underground Project, and it was so I started out when I first moved to New York. I was shooting like the underground rap battles. Like I was getting my way into into hip hop by any means necessary. So I was shooting a lot of those. I was shooting a lot of going to like a lot of the studios around the city, shooting with rappers. But the Underground Project was a project where I met like 10 different rappers, and it was like a fall off from the Source. So the Source was all about the mainstream artists, and I've always been like into the underground story, into the person who has like this has to endure adversity. So yeah, my thesis project was like a conversation about talking about hypermasculinity, talking about just navigating the industry and things like that. And from it meant to be the actual photographs, but the thesis project actually ended up being the behind the scenes video, which was the conversation. So yeah, it's that's kind of what my work has always started. I talk a lot. I realize that.
No, that's good. That's what we're here.
So that's kind of been the premise of the work that I created. And yeah.
And was there anything you learned while you were interning at the Source, or what kind of stuff did they have you doing while you were an intern there?
Yeah, I was shooting a lot of mostly concerts, but I remember the first thing that I shot was like a dinner party. And that was like my first like time shooting celebrities. And I remember the creative director just threw me into it. He was like, "Bring your bring your camera." At the time, I was shooting with the Nikon D90. And I didn't know how to shoot with my flash or anything. And so I get there like an hour early. I'm like on my phone. How do I use this? Like sweating. But yeah, I was shooting a lot of celebrity stuff. I was learning a lot about just like how to talk. I was failing a lot. I was embarrassed a lot. I was getting everything wrong. But in the process, I was just like, this is part of the process, asking a lot of questions. But yeah, I was just going with it, shooting
Yeah.
a lot of everything that they need.
Everyone goes through it. I did the
Mm-hmm.
same. I remember my first assignment. I had to. I didn't even own a digital camera. I had to rent it, and
Yep.
there was some. I think there was something off with like how you can change the diopter for your vision, like depending you
Mm-hmm.
can turn it. And I didn't realize. I think that was happening. All the photos came out blurry, and in the moment, like the editor's there, and I'm like, "What's going on?" Like I don't know what's right. So like
Right.
just freaking out. It was terrible.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just like those growing pains, and you got to get out there and do
You
it.
have to.
Yeah.
You have
Um,
to. I remember the creative director. I remember like after the first shoot, we were looking at the images and he looks through all 200 and he's like, yeah, you're not coming to the next event.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so it's growing pains for
Yeah.
sure.
And were there any photographers like early on that whose work kind of inspired you that you remember like looking at that was kind of influential to you think?
Yeah, I mean the when I first moved to New York, Jonathan Mannion, Carl Chisholm, I mean, those were like my two people who were just like hands down, so much respect. Because at the time, I was I was thinking I was going to be a photographer who would shoot all album covers. So those were, Jonathan Mannion shot so many different rap album covers, and so he was really influential to my career. And then when I got to Parsons, I started learning about the greats, the excuse me, Carrie Mae Weems and um the even the George Pitts who was a professor at Parsons, and even my classmates who are some of my favorite photographers now. Yeah, I just so many different people. I think someone who really shapes my storytelling work is definitely Carrie Mae Weems, and from a contemporary standpoint now, like Renell Madrano and people like that really see documentary and storytelling.
Yeah, Carrie Mae Williams is great. I have a really cool book she did with Daywood Bay. It's like in dialogue. It's like both their work together in the book. It's a really amazing work.
Really? I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. I picked it up like 6 months ago or something. It's a really great book because it kind of shows both their work. They kind of did the book together.
Oh,
Um,
awesome. Yeah, please send that my way.
yeah,
Please send that my way.
definitely. And once you got out of college, what was kind of your first steps into the photo industry? Like, what were kind of your first jobs? What were you doing? Did you kind of go the traditional route of like photo assisting, or what was kind of your first step once you got out of school?
Yeah, after I got out, I was interning at the last part of my college career, and then after that, my first job was I was shooting at a portrait studio in Brooklyn, shooting students for all the way from little babies, kindergarten to high school, and then also I had like 5 jobs at one time. It was
How
like
was that
that.
experience? Because that's like the hard. If you can do that, you can. If you can shoot babies and it's whatever, that's like you can do anything after
No,
that.
seriously, serious. That is a true testament. If you can shoot photograph babies, you can do it all. But it was trying because I was thinking I was going to get out of school. I just had a editorial experience. I'm thinking, okay, by August I'll be shooting the cover, no problem.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like trying to get babies to like look at me, and it was like it was learning patience when I had no patience whatsoever. But it was great. It was a completely different skill set. I was learning about studio photography, which was something different. And then from there, like I said, then I got like a cluster of work because then after like I'm three months removed from school, and then I'm realizing, okay, student loans are going to kick in 3 months. I need to start working. So then I started working at a company called Fight Ball, which was a basketball street ball league. So I was their brand photographer, and then fast forward. what was I doing? I was doing a lot of assisting, a lot of light direction, doing anything that I could do to learn. I was an art assistant, so I was creating like paper flowers for different hotels around New York. I was doing it all. I was
Yeah.
doing it all. Hmm.
How did you like photo assisting, and was there any photographers you learned a lot from getting to assist for?
Oh yeah, I assisted with I'm gonna mess up his name. Porus. His last name is Vlandermill, I believe. He taught me a lot about just lighting and how to interact with the model. I assisted on a couple of magazine shoots. I think the photographer at that point, who I was learning a lot from was a couple of my professors from Parsons kind of took me under their wing. Also, Lisa Ross, who I consider one of my mentors, really just pushed me to shoot a lot of events. She was a documentary photographer, so a lot of her work and like how she approached her work, she showed me different processes. But yeah, I was literally doing it all,
That's
anything I
great.
could
I
to
think
learn.
yeah, starting out, I was the same way. I did all types of stuff, weddings, bar mitzvahs,
Mm-hmm.
whatever kind of come your way. It's this thing I did
Yep.
all types of random stuff, and you
Yep. I did shoot one bar mitzvah in like upper New York. And that was the wild. I had never been to a bar mitzvah. And that was just like beautiful. Like I think that that year after graduating school and just like doing so many different things to just, that you the way that you have to do it, you have to get out there and grind. I think that was just like so pivotal to me because I was not only like getting different projects, but learning so many things about so many different people and cultures. So
yeah.
it was great.
And it's just good to hear, like, it seems like you're open to trying other
Mm-hmm.
things, where I think sometimes people can be very like rigid and like they're like, I'm only gonna do this. And at least for me, like starting out, I, I definitely made that mistake before, but like being open to different experiences and might not be the type of photography you want to do right out the gate, but I feel like you probably learned a lot of stuff from even jobs you did that may weren't that creative, but I'm sure you learned something that helped you further down the line in your career, I would imagine.
For sure. I was open in the beginning, and I will say that I did get to a point where I was just like really frustrated, thinking that, thinking I was supposed to be further than I was. And that's when I had another mentor by the name of Margot Jordan, who I'm so grateful for. I was assistant for her, and she was like, you need to and now it's about like your attitude and how like you approach people. And I think that that was a really pivotal moment because that could have been like a moment where I really ruined a lot of relationships if I didn't have that support of just like being told those things of just like how to carry yourself through a room and things like that. So
Yeah, it's what do they say? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
mm-hmm,
It
mm-hmm.
truly is.
Yeah, but I did have my closed minded moments for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. We all learn. Then
Mhm.
you went on to you were a photo editor for the NBA, I think for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
How'd that kind of opportunity come about, and like how's that experience getting to work for such like an iconic organization?
Yeah, I think it really I think it really stemmed from having that fight ball experience. So that was one of the jobs that I had, similarly close to that right after college. And I was shooting. So what I was doing at Fight Ball as a brand photographer. Fight Ball was like a one-on-one basketball league. So I was traveling around the country, creating these different player profiles for the different players. And so I was getting creative direction experience. I was getting photography experience. I was getting photo editing experience. I was creating this black and white style. And then from there, wait, what was your question, Alex?
That
I
no,
forgot
it's
where I
all
was
right.
going.
I do that all the time. I lose my train of thought. I was just asking, like, you ended up going to work for the NBA as a photo editor. I
Oh
was
yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
curious, like, how that opportunity came about, and like, what was your kind of experience getting to work for like such an iconic organization?
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes
It's all
I go
right.
all over the place. But yeah, so NBA was great. It was I think that they saw that work that I did at Fightball. And then this was 2, 3 years later. This was after I went back home for Houston for a while, came back to New York. And then yeah, it's literally out the blue. I think I applied That's that kind of happens. I applied years before, and then at the right moment, it's kind of just like randomly came about. I remember the NBA called me when I was on set, working at the portrait studio, and I was like, "There's no way this is truly the NBA." I'm gonna call them back later, but I don't believe it. And but it was great. It was awesome. I learned so much about basketball. I learned so much about culture because coming from the Source magazine, I was always at the Rucker. I was always at these spaces, and it was just like a natural transition to just go into the NBA and fully into sports. I was going, so it was awesome. I was working with a lot of a small group of photo editors. It was like 8 of us, taking care of the entire NBA, WNBA, NBA 2K, what else? G League. So
Wow.
it was awesome. It was really just about talking to the photographer that was in the arena and creating these workflows to get the photographs edited out to the partners and out to the world.
Yeah, what are some of the projects you're working on as a photo editor for the NBA? Is it just kind of stuff for the website, social media? Like what are kind of some of the projects you're working on, and where's the photography going? I guess that you're getting
Yeah,
ready.
so it was really I was it was live. It was a lot of live work. So I would be assigned to like 2 or 3 games per night, different photographers in different cities, and how it would work is their cameras cameras would be tethered in the different arenas, and we would be in New Jersey at the headquarters, and then we would get all of those images within seconds to our cameras. They would be tethered,
Wow.
and we would edit them, using our different softwares and get them out. Like when I tell you that was the fact, I learned how to work so fast. That was that was when I first started drinking coffee because the hours were like 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. So yeah, we get put out everything like game content. We did media day. I did drafts. Did
So
everything. It
you
was
you
just
must yeah you must have learned a lot about that. I don't know. Were you a basketball fan before that? Really? Like before?
I was into street ball, so I
Oh
was into like and one things that I
yeah.
would see in the Source magazine. I would read a lot of like East Bay growing up. But I wasn't like into like the NBA. I've never been into like the lights, camera, action. I've always been into like the second best.
The stories. Yeah.
Yeah, the stories. So
Yeah.
yeah, became
That's
a fan though for sure.
That's amazing. And for anybody listening who maybe has an interest in becoming a photo editor, like what would you tell them? Like, what kind of skills do you need to be a photo editor? And like, how do you kind of, what advice would you give to someone trying to get their foot in the door for their first kind of gig to become a photo editor?
I would say across the board, just being nice to people, being open to conversations. That's first and foremost. Being a good human is second. But from a skill standpoint, it's I would say you need to know a lot about different programs. Now it's like a lot of different emerging programs. I think you need to know about cropping, and you need to know the basics about lighting, contrast. Um, uh, just overall size and different crop styles, different platforms and where and export settings and things like that. And then also you just need to know a lot about people because in that environment we were working fast. So knowing the different players, knowing the different or the context of whatever you're working on, in that type of arena. So for some photo editors, it's more of like, they're working on editorial content, so putting together a magazine, just knowing about the subject and really being passionate about it because photo editing, I think in addition to just like the technical elements, it's about the people and accentuating that person. So I talk to a lot of photo editors who work on like like shows, reality shows, and knowing you have to edit certain things to a certain person because they're sensitive to a certain thing on their face, or they may have like a mole, or may have wrinkles. So I think it's just about just knowing, being with people and knowing their different qualms about themselves and things like that.
And for someone looking for their first opportunity, like you said, like you applied for probably a year before that you didn't know, like
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give someone? Because I think that's the hard thing everyone struggles with is like you're trying to get your first job, but your resume is like, I've never worked as a photo editor, but I want to do this. Like what
Mm-hmm.
would you tell that person to like try to get their foot in the door, I guess?
I would say email. I think that goes back around to the persistency. Find something that's like that's organic to who you are and like be persistent at it for as long as it takes. I sent a lot of emails, found the people who I wanted to work with. And one thing that I did that my dad really made me do that I'm grateful for after school was making a dream list of all the places that I wanted to work for. And then compiling and condensing it. So I had my 5 dream companies that I wanted to work for out of school, and NBA was one of them. And just really
Dang.
being persistent of just like I'm finding editors, I'm finding I'm being in these spaces, seeing where they are, seeing where I can maybe find a place to shake hands with someone and just letting them know what my name is. Because one thing I found is, you make that introduction and it may not make sense now, but it may make sense 5 years from now. People remember good humans. So I would just
Yeah.
say,
Yeah, I think kind of goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. It's just a constant thing. It's just like
mm-hmm.
being a part of the community and keep planting those seeds and just kind of keep at it. You never know what's coming down the line.
You
Uh,
never know.
yeah, and for you, you've gotten to work at. You obviously worked at the NBA, but then you also went on to work for like some advertising agencies and then Meta. How different is it being a photo editor for like the NBA versus like working for Meta? Or I know you worked for Godfrey. I'm gonna butcher the
Godfrey
pronunciation.
Dadich.
How do you pronounce it? Godfrey?
Godfrey Dadich.
Yeah, Dadich, which is an
Uh-huh.
advertising agency.
Mm-hmm.
How different is that job versus working for like the NBA?
I there at that transition, you start to see that titles don't matter. And it's not don't matter. I'll use my words carefully, but there's so many different ways that you can categorize different things. A photo editor at NBA is completely different from what it is at an advertising agency. And I think the process is so at the NBA, I was doing like that more repetitive, consistent type of things. Whereas as a photo editor at the advertising agency, I was more so client facing. I was curating. So we had different clients come to the photo director of photography. I worked close with the director of photography, Rosie Lakos, who was at Godfrey Dadich, and she would kind of like oversee what was going to happen from a photography standpoint, and then I would do like the photo research, the photo editing, so creating styles, creating mood boards, pitching, working with the art directors to find photographers for a specific story or for a specific project. So I think that came in the skill set that you would need from like an agency's perspective is like knowing photographers, being able to like photo research fast, knowing stock sites, how to research and how to navigate those platforms, but then also how to collaborate with other creatives. That was the main difference from those two roles.
That's awesome. And getting to be around like those high level productions at Godfrey or Meta, um, what what did you see? Like, what was it about the photographers that were getting hired for the projects for like these bigger brands? Like, what kind of set them apart? And like, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to get that type of commercial work, I guess?
I would say confidence. It's all about the confidence and having something to say. I think the photographers that really get the jobs are those that come with something. I think that um, a lot of times the photographers will wonder like what are they supposed to be doing in a certain such a situation, and it's intimidating. Especially like the first like creative kickoff call. Sometimes a photographer can be more timid, but I think what really separates the photographers that get those jobs are the ones who have like a clear perspective, like I can add X, Y, and Z to this project. I have this type of perspective, or I think it would be cool to edit in this style, or just have like some type of concrete input to where the art directors are like, oh, Yeah, I can see that. And, they are adding something to the story. I think that it's that confidence really goes a long way. Even if you have an idea that's so far off from the brief, bring that idea because that's what creates your brand, not only like from the campaigns that people see on the roads, but like, the creative director, the art directors, those conversations really matter. So yeah, I think the confidence
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, you want to put your client at ease when they're spending like a lot of money on these productions, and they
Mm-hmm.
they, they can rest easy knowing that you know what you're doing. Um,
Exactly.
did you have like any favorite campaigns you got to be a part of, either like in Godfrey or Meta, or like what were some of the projects you look back on that maybe you're proud of, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who's so excited to be in the in the room always. So but a project that I really love is one that I recently did at Meta last May, in which we worked with the creative team, the photo team, built this set to and this campaign around celebrating people's individuality. So we went out to LA and we shot and we worked with casting to find an array of people. We had roller skaters, we had bikers, we had we had people who meditated, sound bath people, and just really highlighting the essence of who people were. And because it was going to be featured on Facebook, the app, we wanted to just show.
Is it this work?
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah, that's it. You threw me off for a second. I thought I lost you for a second. But yes, it's this work. And just so we had like this person, this model actually made her crochet outfit. And the person braiding her hair is an actual braider. And just being able to like create authentic photo shoots and just create authentic spaces, to where people could show up and be themselves, is always awesome. I think he was a musician, or maybe he was just posing in that way. I think for that. But this is one of my friends, Hayes, who is an artist, who specializes in this. Like this is him, and to be able to create these spaces and be a part of a project to where people can show up and be happy being themselves and be celebrated for that. That's one that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's great. And who photographed all this campaign?
This was Brittany Bravo. She is a photographer based in LA. Awesome, awesome photographer who I actually came across in a portfolio that I did like 2 years before. And I remember being introduced to her as an emerging photographer, and we just always kept in touch. So, like the opportunity has been for me being able to 2 years later hire Brittany Bravo and pitch her. It's all these full circle moments in my career. But yeah, we were able to hire Brittany Bravo and bring that to life. And the videographer was Julie Pitch from New York.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And with like a shoot like this, was Brittany bringing ideas to the campaign, or was it already kind
Mhm.
of planned out? Like, hey, we want to shoot them against these kind of colored walls, or like, how does it kind of all come together with like a campaign like this, I guess?
Yeah, I think the concept was pretty. I think I don't remember correctly, but I think the premise was already pretty much built. But I do remember like Brittany came on the call and her energy was just like she's ready to do it. First of all, she's excited about it, and she sees it, and she's able. I think on those creative calls, what I really look for is like you spend the creative director, the art director has been cultivating this idea for weeks, getting it approved, going through all these different phases. So when we're pitching it to a photographer, we want them to be just as excited. So I remember her excitement on that call, and then being like, okay, well, I know some people. She's from LA, and I know some people who could create it to this idea and bring this vision to life. So I think that was the thing that really made us go for her.
That's awesome. Really, really
Hmm.
great, really
Shout
great.
out to Brittany.
Yeah,
She's
shout out
awesome.
Brittany. Really great campaign. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, you did this project called Bed-Stuy Blue.
Mhm.
Really great portraits. What was the idea behind this project, and how do you kind of approach this work?
Yeah, this was my last. Well, I lived in Brooklyn in Bed-Stuy for just about 2 years, and in that this was 2015, 16, somewhere in that area. And this was the first time that I was living in Brooklyn. At this point, I was coming from, where did I come from? I think I was on the Upper West Side, then moved to Bed-Stuy. And Bed-Stuy was like two magical things, like really stand out to me in my New York experience. Harlem was the first time where I was called a queen. And like I remember that I was walking down the street and I was just like started bawling. And Bed-Stuy, the people of Bed-Stuy like are beyond magical. And I remember living there and just being surrounded and being a part of the community, being let into the community, and then becoming a transplant and becoming a part of this community, and then seeing it change so much in this 2 years while I was living there, go through gentrification. That was the first time I saw gentrification up close and see what it meant. And then so Bed-Stuy Blue was just a love of the organic, the things that were there before the gentrification kind of started to happen. And it was a lot of these portraits were made out of conversations, like talking to my neighbors, like literally like, what were you doing? Can I photograph you? Like that was the last thing that was on my mind after like 30 minutes of talking to these people. So these were my neighbors. They're the people of Bed-Stuy. They're everything that I saw from an outsider perspective, and everything that I was able to draw out from the conversations that I was having from an insider perspective.
Yeah, it's really powerful work, and it kind of goes back to like what you're saying. It's just like real people and real stories, and I think that's I think we're seeing it more and more in advertising now, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm the same way. I like real stories and real people, and I really resonated with this work. And like, how did you approach making the work? Would you kind of go out like, "Hey, I'm trying to shoot today," or is it more just kind of when you kind of met someone, or like, how did the making of the work kind of happen?
Yeah, these were shot with my Yashica Matte 124, and that's my go-to. Like I hated carrying digital cameras around New York because they're so freaking heavy, and I would be like out for like 6 hours, so I would always have that. And anytime like someone would ask me a question about my camera, that would be a point that I would be like, okay, well, this is about to be an opportunity to have a to get some shots. And it would be like I would have it on the way to the grocery store. I'd have it randomly. It would never be like I'm gonna get a photograph today. It would just be like I have it, it's happening, here we go, I'm ready for it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Really powerful work. I'll make sure
Thank
I
you.
link it and people can check it out.
Thank
And
you.
now I'm excited to talk to you about what you're doing now. Besides, other than free juice, you're working as a high school art teacher.
Yes.
Which is this like, I mean, I think that's such an important job, and it's like at the early stages of people that really get to discover photography and
Mhm.
art. It's kind of the beginning for a lot of kids. You know, some people might not pursue it, but they still get to learn about it. How do you kind of decide to become a high school art teacher, and how's this experience been for you? Because I think it's like your first year, right?
Yeah, this is my second month, Alex. It is so great and it's so random and it's so magical. Like you said, it's so let me give you a little bit of backstory. This was not planned at all. I had a year off, so after leaving Facebook, this was last July. My contract came to an end, and then I had a year to just sit and do nothing. The job market was crazy. I was freelancing a lot. And the work was just inconsistent. I just bought a house at the top of this year. So yeah, this I moved out to the country, so where I live, this little neighborhood, and I was looking for a position for my fiance actually, and I'm on the website, and my high school dance teacher is like the chair, and I'm just like so excited to see her. So I email her, and so she is like actually like, no way, you just moved to this country town. Like, can you come in for our empowerment day? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then the art teacher actually ended up retiring the day before this semester started. And so we were talking about Empowerment Day, and my teacher was like, hey, we have this art teacher position open now, or would you be interested in substituting? And I was just like, why not? And I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it so much. So I'm not only teaching photography, but I haven't got to photography yet, but I'm teaching drawing, I'm teaching painting, I'm teaching like the color theory, I'm teaching so many different things from a fundamental standpoint because I never had art. So I always remember passing by like the art studio and like wanting to be in there. So now having the opportunity to like create whatever, I am having so much fun. So I have them like meditating. I have them we start our day with like an intention of the day every day. So it's not just like about the art because in high school, you know, some people are in that class as an elective. Not everybody wants to be an artist, but I'm really like focusing on creating good humans in this 57 minutes and creating intentional humans. So it's been so awesome to be able to have this dialogue with these young professionals and these young people who think that they have it all figured out. And it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible because I have a friend who's an art teacher too, and I talked to him about it, and he loves it too. But it is a challenge sometimes because it's like you're saying, like
Mm-hmm.
some kids want to be there, some don't, and they're probably like teenagers, so like
Mm-hmm.
their mood could be up and down. But like how
Yeah.
how do you approach like teaching art? Like, do you kind of get to make the curriculum, and like how do you keep them engaged? I guess.
Yeah, it's kind I kind of do get to create the curriculum. We have like our what we call our TEKs and the standard curriculum that has to be taught. We have like 4 weeks of painting, 4 weeks of the standard things. But as far as like how the classroom is structured, I get creative freedom. So I really like I said, there's so many different types of people. We have everyone from freshmen to seniors. So it's really been like I've been approaching them a lot through technology. So using social media, bringing that into the classroom, using music. I have like a showtime every Thursday to like show anything that they're proud of. Doesn't have to be in art class, can be anything. Like just getting them engaged, getting them talking, getting them proud about something that they're creating. That's really been the magic sauce. I
That's
think.
amazing. What do you
Yeah.
think you enjoy about it most?
I would say just laughing with them. They keep me laughing. And they're so open. And even when, like you talked about like the challenges, there's always gonna be challenges with teenagers, but like what I found so magical about them is like even when they're wrong, they still want to learn. And they want some support. They just, most of the times when they're frustrated, it's because they don't understand something or they're going through something completely different. So yeah, I think it's just about just meeting them right where they are and finding something fun and funny. We laugh all day in my class. And yeah, it's been awesome.
That's
And at the
great.
end of the day, just keeping my expectation high, I think has been the main thing. They know Miss Stewart has high expectations, so they
Yeah.
like to rise.
No, that's amazing, and I think it's such an important job, like being a teacher, and it's just like you're saying, like having a mentor. This having someone to like kind of give you that like support and like
Mm-hmm.
push you a little bit and like get the train going, you know. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
such an important thing, and like everything you're doing with free juice and being a teacher, it's nothing but respect. But I guess to wrap up, like what's next? Anything else you want people should know about free juice and any kind of parting words, I guess.
Yeah, I would say this has been so great, by the way. This
No
has
worries.
been
No, thank you.
so awesome. And what's next is so I could tell you what I think is next, Alex. I think I'm going to continue to. I found like a real purpose in teaching, so I want to do more lectures. I've done some lectures at the college level, university level, but I want to continue to do that. I want to wrap out this semester in this school and see what the next year looks like. But I really, as far as Free Juice is concerned, I want to continue to grow this community. I want it to be bigger. I want to have more resources. I want people to just know that they can do it, and I want to continue to be surprised by life and show up in any way that I can.
Perfect. Well, that's perfect. And for anybody listening, I'll put the links to Free Juice and your guys' socials and website in the
Thank you.
show notes of this episode, so people can go check it out. But thanks so much for everything you're doing and for taking the time.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it.
So there you have it. That was the Allison Retina Stewart interview. Just want to thank Allison so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. It's a real pleasure speaking to her about her journey with photography and everything that she's accomplished. Really cool story. She's done a lot of different things within the industry, and obviously all the amazing work she's doing with her organization, Free Juice. We definitely urge you to go check out their website at freejuice.info. You can learn more about the organization and see what they're up to. But yeah, I can't thank her enough. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, with this episode, if you enter the promo code BANTER, you'll get 2 months free of the PicDrop image transfer tool. All you got to do is go over to picdrop.com, enter the promo code BANTER, and you'll get 2 months free. And as always, thanks so much for listening, and take care.